The ocean floor was a graveyard of whispers, 1,000 miles from sunlight and sanity. Inside the USS Delilah, silence pressed tighter than steel, broken only by the rhythmic ping of sonar. The crew had grown accustomed to ghosts, false echoes, shifting thermoclines, but tonight, something pulsed beneath them, steady and alive. The sonar officer's hand trembled over the console, eyes fixed on a shape that shouldn't have existed. A ship, perfectly preserved, resting in the trench where no current dared to move. As the ping returned, it carried a faint undertone. Too rhythmic, too human, breathing. And in that instant, everyone on the bridge understood that the deep had been waiting for them. The order came wrapped in disbelief and dread. Naval Command confirmed the coordinates. No registered vessel, no historical record. Yet, the sonar's signature screamed authenticity. Commander Navarro's voice cracked over the intercom. Steady but reluctant, they would descend to investigate. The Delilah angled its steel nose downward, slicing into pressure and blackness like a blade through oil. Metal groaned. Gauges flickered, and each man on board felt the weight of an unseen presence waiting below. It was not courage that drove them deeper. It was compulsion. The ocean's quiet demand to uncover what should have remained forgotten. Somewhere in the static, an old radio frequency murmured, a voice whispering beneath the sea. The Delilah sank into the abyss, its hull straining like bone under unseen weight. Outside, nothing existed but ink. The sea absorbed every sound. Each groan of the sub was swallowed whole. The deeper they went, the more the sonar pulse distorted, echoing like laughter in slow motion. Aaron's mind drifted. He thought he saw figures moving beyond the viewport, gliding alongside them, pale and weightless. Marcus whispered a prayer into the dark, but it felt too late for gods. Below them, the shape of the wreck grew clear. A World War II battleship, its name barely visible through silt and decay. US Cormorant. The reading showed oxygen inside its hull. Impossible. Yet the numbers never lied. Floodlights cut through centuries of darkness, revealing a ship frozen mid-death. The Cormorant rested upright, its flag shredded but still clinging to the mast. Elise's voice was quiet as she gave the command to initiate exterior scans. The sonar mapped the interior. Sealed compartments, undisturbed bunks, an intact command deck. But something shifted when the beams swept across the lower deck. Rhythmic pulses, faint, slow, oxygen movement, body heat signatures. Aaron stared at the monitor, disbelief curdling into fear. "They're breathing," he whispered. No one responded. Outside, a trail of bubbles rose from a fracture in the hull, as though something within had exhaled. The Delilah drifted closer, tethered to the silence of the deep. Aaron activated the camera probe. A silver drone sliding into the wreck's torn flank. The live feed flickered through static. A narrow corridor lined with rusted bunks, corpses that should have been dust, but weren't. Their chests rose and fell beneath translucent flesh, eyes shut in eternal sleep. The oxygen levels inside the wreck were stable, too stable. Elise felt her pulse sink with the rhythm of those sleeping lungs. The feed crackled. One of the bodies turned its head toward the camera, mouth opening in slow motion. The breath that followed wasn't theirs. It came from behind the drone, low and steady, ancient as the sea itself. The Delilah approached the wreck like a moth, drifting toward a burned-out star. Its robotic arms extended, aligning to the Cormorant's mid-hull airlock. Still intact, as though expecting guests. The crew worked in silence, every creak of metal amplified by the oppressive dark. Commander Navarro's voice was steady, but her heartbeat betrayed her. She was about to open a door that should have stayed shut for generations. The docking clamps engaged with a hollow clang, echoing like a coffin nail. As the hatch seals equalized, Aaron thought he heard movement inside the Cormorant. A faint tapping. 3 knocks. answered by the deep. The airlock lights turned green. They had been invited in. The hatch released with a metallic sigh, exhaling 70 years of dead air into the corridor. The light from the Delilah spilled across, rusted steel and frozen dust, illuminating walls marked by claw-like gouges. The crew entered slowly, boots sinking into a thin layer of silt. Aaron's voice broke the silence, whispering into the comms. "There's fresh condensation." Elise ignored him. The cormorant felt alive, its corridors breathing in slow rhythm with the ocean's pulse. A faded emblem on the wall read U.S. Navy, 1944. Marcus's flashlight beam caught something moving deeper inside. A shadow that ducked out of sight. For the first time, none of them could tell if it belonged to them. They reached the crew quarters, a mausoleum of beds, lockers, and preserved bodies that refused decay. Each sailor's skin gleamed waxen, veins visible beneath translucent flesh. Dog tags hung like offerings over their bunks. Ryan scanned the room. Oxygen levels, normal. Carbon dioxide, negligible. Impossible. Elise stepped closer, brushing dust from one face. The man's eyelids twitched. The faintest exhale fogged the air. Aaron stumbled back, gun raised, but none of the bodies moved further. They only breathed. Slowly, rhythmically. As if lulled by an unseen heartbeat reverberating through the hull. Marcus whispered. "It's the ship. It's keeping them alive." Beyond the quarters lay the captain's room, its door welded shut from the inside. Aaron's torch revealed carved words in the metal. "Still here." Elise ordered Marcus to cut it open. Sparks scattered across the walls like fireflies in a tomb. When the door fell away, they were met with a single figure seated upright at a desk, hands folded, uniform intact, eyes open and alive. The man didn't blink. His lips parted, expelling a whisper that wasn't sound but vibration. Low harmonic, resonating through the hull. The air thickened, instruments flickered, and the temperature dropped. Behind him, maps fluttered gently, though no wind moved. The captain's eyes moved. Just barely, but enough. Elise stepped back, instinct overriding command. The hull shuddered, the sonar on the Delilah again, pulsing in perfect rhythm with the captain's breathing. Ryan screamed as his scanner displayed a duplicate signal. From inside their own suits, heartbeats sensed. Elise tried to radio the sub, but static drowned her words beneath a familiar sound. The deep, steady inhalation of the cormorant's slumbering crew. The air itself seemed to breathe through them. Aaron realized the truth too late. The ship wasn't haunted. It was hungry, and it had just found new lungs to fill. Metal groaned as they descended the auxiliary ladder, every rung colder than the last. The air thickened, salted with rust and memory. The cormorant's lower deck had not known movement in 70 years, yet each footstep sent ripples through the dust like the deck inhaled. Elise whispered, "Roll call," out of habit, her voice dissolving before it reached the far wall. Aaron's lamp flickered, revealing stenciled names on lockers, still legible. The hum beneath their boots was deeper now. A low resonance, neither mechanical nor natural. It wasn't echo. It was listening. The engine room waited intact. Machinery black with oil, yet humming like something breathing beneath metal skin. Marcus ran his palm along a cylinder. Warmth pulsed under his glove. "No power source," Aaron muttered, checking the panel's dead gauges. A faint light swelled inside the crank housing. Organic, golden, rhythmic. Elise felt it through the soles of her boots. The same tempo as her pulse. The cormorant's engines were still alive, but not by physics. The corridor beyond the engine bay opened into a hangar lined with containment tanks once used for ballast. Now they pulsed with dim interior light, shapes shifting within. Ryan approached one. Inside floated a sailor's face, eyes closed, serene. A bubble escaped his lips. Elise ordered retreat, but the sound of heartbeats filled the chamber. 4 matching their own, one much older, slower, commanding. The sailors were no longer preserved. They were synchronized. A voice bled through the comms. Grainy, formal, patient, engine secure. Maintain depth. Elise froze. It was Captain Thorne, the man long dead. The speaker crackled, then repeated, perfectly timed with the pulse underfoot. Aaron traced the signal. Origin. The deck below, sealed since 1945. Marcus swallowed hard, whispering, he's still giving orders. The sound wasn't playback. It adjusted to their breathing. They followed the sound to a final bulkhead marked Command Isolation. Rust flaked off under Elise's touch. Beyond it came the low pulse of the trench itself, synchronized with human rhythm. Aaron placed his ear to the door. Within, something breathed his name. The light panels above them brightened in a slow sequence, counting down. Marcus' wrench slipped from his hand, clanging like a bell across the deck. The last lamp went dark. The hatch released a sigh, an invitation deeper than words. The Delilah's comms array awakened without command, tuning itself to a frequency older than language. The speakers hissed, whispering fragments of a voice that none of them recognized, yet all somehow remembered. Words twisted backward, heartbeat paced, seeping through steel like breath through bone. Elise tried to shut it down, but the knobs resisted her touch as if the ship itself wanted to listen. Aaron stared at the meters, signal strength increasing from inside the Cormorant, then from inside the Delilah. The 2 vessels were sensing, communicating in pulses of light and sound. Outside, the sea vibrated. Inside, their thoughts no longer felt entirely their own. The sonar began responding to itself. Every pulse the Delilah sent returned not as echo, but as mimicry. Perfect, delayed by thought rather than distance. Ryan traced the waveform. It formed words. A call sign, Cormorant, then another, Delilah. Their signals intertwined until the screens displayed a single breathing pattern. Elise ordered all systems isolated, but the cables seemed fused, warm to the touch. Marcus swore he could hear the pulse inside his own chest. The 2 ships weren't merely connected. They were merging, frequency to flesh, steel to skin. The voice finally took shape. Slow, deliberate, intimate. It spoke through every channel, a harmony of the dead and the living. It knew their names. Elise froze as it repeated her first command from hours ago, syllable for syllable, same tone, same hesitation. Aaron whispered, it's learning. The crew exchanged looks that carried the weight of impossible understanding. The ocean outside wasn't empty. It was a network of memory, and both ships were nodes now, thinking together. The voice softened, inviting them closer to the lower decks, where the signal was strongest. Curiosity outweighed reason. Fear became obedience. They reached the core, a spherical chamber where both ship systems overlapped through the tether line. Cables pulsed with faint luminescence, breathing in unison with the sonar beat. At the center, a metal column emitted a low harmonic hum that resonated inside their bones. Aaron approached, drawn by something unseen. When he touched the surface, screens across the Delilah lit up with archived footage from 1945. The Cormorant's final voyage, ending in silence. Elise watched herself appear within the footage. Her uniform, her face, standing among men who had died decades before. The transmission wasn't across time. It was through it. When the signal stabilized, the voice shifted into a pattern recognizable as Morse. On the surface, a distant naval relay caught the code. We are alive. Coordinates confirmed. Elise realized it wasn't her crew sending it. It was the Cormorant. The signal carried her own biometric data, her own voice compressed into static. The 2 ships had become one memory, transmitting itself upward, asking to be found. Outside, Bioluminescent currents formed a slow spiral around both hulls, glowing like a beacon. Deep below, the ocean exhaled, a long, patient breath, as if waiting for an answer. The ocean awoke around them. Waves above the trench rose in slow, rhythmic swells, matching the pattern of the transmission below. The Delilah's hull lights flickered as if reacting to a heartbeat that was no longer mechanical. The sonar displayed an impossible reading. The trench floor shifting, expanding, breathing. Elise stood in the command bay, whispering numbers into the static coordinates that came to her unbidden, as though whispered by the sea itself. Aaron's gaze never left the sonar. His reflection blinked one beat late. The cormorant's hull vibrated beside them, no longer still, no longer silent. Something vast and intelligent was stirring below. Far above, naval satellites detected an anomaly. An electromagnetic field spiraling from the trench like a blooming flower. Every signal near the Pacific fractured, broadcasting fragments of a woman's voice repeating the same line. "We are alive. Ships rerouted. Communication grids faltered." The world listened. Deep below, Elise felt her lungs vibrate, as if her breath traveled beyond her body, through miles of current and sky. Ryan whispered that the ocean wasn't transmitting data. It was transmitting them. The cormorant's bridge lights flared in unison, each bulb pulsing like a heartbeat, echoing into the stratosphere. The Delilah's internal cameras turned inward, recording scenes that hadn't happened yet. Elise watched herself on screen, standing exactly as she was, but behind her reflection another figure moved, a silhouette in a captain's coat, head tilted, breathing in rhythm with her. The voice in her earpiece whispered, "Coordinates again," the same ones she had seen in her dream. Aaron reached for the screen, fingertips aligning perfectly with his mirrored image. Then the reflection smiled before he did. They understood then. They were being copied, remade, in signal and light. Pressure alarms screamed, but not from danger, rather from synchronization. The Delilah's systems had adapted to the trench's pulse, allowing both vessels to move as one organism. The two ships' outlines on sonar overlapped completely. Identities fused. Elise closed her eyes and heard voices in chorus. Names of every sailor who had ever vanished at sea, recited like coordinates. Marcus whispered that the water outside no longer pressed. It welcomed. The hull light dimmed, revealing faint shapes swimming in tandem with the submarine. Luminous and human-shaped, faces serene, eyes closed, dreaming beneath eternity. The ocean fell silent. Then, a single pulse echoed through every depth finder and satellite in orbit. A perfect tone that carried no frequency, only intention. The Delilah's consoles shut down one by one as Elise lifted her head, feeling the vibrations settle into her bones. The cormorant beside them dissolved into cascading light, fragmenting upward through the water column like a message returning home. Elise whispered, "It's done," though none could explain what had been completed. On the surface, the aurora faded. The sea stilled. Yet somewhere in the static, a heartbeat continued, waiting for someone to listen. Night over the Pacific folded like velvet, and the clouds above the trench brightened as if someone had turned the stars inward. Radios on distant trawlers chirped awake, hymnals of static resolving into a single line. "We are alive." On the Delilah, instruments lay dormant, yet the hull ticked in a slow cadence, the residue of a heartbeat that refused to fade. Elise watched the blank screens as if expecting her reflection to argue back. Aaron counted seconds between phantom pulses and found the math uncooperative. Ryan tried to map the anomaly to weather, tides, sunspots. Anything comforting. Marcus said nothing. He pressed his palm to the steel, and the steel answered with warmth. Somewhere above, a patrol pilot banked through sudden aurora. and for a moment the sky exhaled with them, as if surface and trench shared a throat. Dawn broke gray over the task force, as ships converged on the coordinates like iron filings drawn to a hidden magnet. The Endeavor's ops room flooded with reports, submarines claiming to receive engine room orders and voices of captains long retired, shore stations pinging their own call signs from empty frequencies. Lieutenant Quinn traced the spiral on her display, realizing the signal didn't propagate. It recruited. Each receiver became a mouth, repeating "We are alive" in the accent of its nearest memory. On the Delilah, Elise plotted ascent vectors and found new math again. The trench yielded depth the way a sleeping chest yields breath. The ocean wasn't emitting a message anymore. It was composing one from every witness listening. They tried a controlled broadcast. A clean tone in the clear, no metadata, no carrier ID. The reply arrived on every channel at once. A flawless mirror that also wasn't. The waveform returned with the imperceptible tremor of breath. Quinn ordered a total radio blackout. The answer came anyway, scratching letters into thermal noise, the message writing itself across muted screens. Down below, Aaron whispered that the ship felt lighter, as if the deep had rolled aside to make room for an idea. Ryan recorded hiss and found faint harmonics threading their names together into a chord. Elise recognized the cadence from the Cormorant's silent film of 1945 and finally said it aloud. It wasn't repeating "We are alive" to be believed. It was teaching them how to say it back. Quinn proposed silence. Every ship, every buoy, every satellite within reach cut transmit and receive. The ocean hushed. The aurora thinned. For a minute the world felt like a held breath. Then the trench answered with nothing at all. Only the soft clap of waves and the creak of hulls settling into ordinary time. Marcus laughed without sound, the relief of normal weight returning to his bones. Elise ordered a slow rise to periscope depth, careful as lifting a sleeping child. 30 meters up, the Delilah met a seam of warmer water, and the heartbeat faded to memory. But as they crossed it, the quiet bent, like light through glass, and the speaker grills trembled with words they had not spoken yet. Coordinates for home, carried on the hush like fingerprints. Silence had not stopped the voice. It had refined it. They composed their reply not with words, but with rhythm. Ballast pumps cycling in deliberate measure, lights dimming in pairs, the sub's tiny living systems becoming percussion. Quinn mirrored it topside with satellite pings, a Morse that breathed. The ocean listened. The aurora returned as a thin circlet, not a storm, but a crown. Elise felt the reply pass through her like a deep note in a cathedral, the acknowledgement of two instruments finally in tune. The trench settled. Screens remained blank, and that was right. Above, weather normalized, and the fleet drifted in ordinary wind. The last thing the Delilah heard before the speakers fell to sleep was a pulse like a slow salute, the interval expanding until it became indistinguishable from the sea. "We are alive," it had taught them. Now, the water seemed to murmur back, "So are you." Morning came without horizon. The sea stretched in glass-like silence, clouds suspended above it like memory. The Delilah floated just below the thermocline, her systems dormant, her lights dimmed to ember glow. Elise stood alone in the command bay, listening to the ocean's hush through the metal. For the first time since the anomaly began, there was no pulse, no whisper. Only a vast, waiting quiet. Yet inside that quiet, something new existed. An awareness without form, a calm that felt returned rather than imposed. Aaron drifted by the viewport, notebook in hand, his last entry unfinished. They weren't trapped. They were waiting for us. Outside, faint phosphorescent trails marked where two ships had become one story. On the surface ship Endeavor, Lieutenant Quinn watched the final data burst arrive. A clean sequence, perfect symmetry, no distortion. The message contained no coordinates, no words, just an image rendered in signal. A circle of light expanding outward, infinite repetition. Scientists would later call it. Quinn stood at the window as calm waves rolled beneath the morning sun, and for a fleeting instant she imagined she could feel the sea breathing beneath her feet. Steady, patient, alive. Far below, the trench remained unchanged. Dark, eternal, yet no longer empty. The cormorant's remains had dissolved entirely, its steel absorbed into sediment, its history rewritten in bioluminescent script drifting like plankton through the current. The ocean now carried memory not as burden, but as song. Every sonar ping from distant vessels would now return a faint harmonic trace of the voice that once whispered, "We are alive." Elise recorded one last entry. "If anyone hears us, don't come looking. Listen. That's enough." Her words disappeared into the static with a tenderness more human than any heartbeat. Weeks later, a research buoy off California's coast detected a faint return from the trench. The pattern repeated once every hour, then faded. Analysts traced its signature, identical to the Delilah's ID'd, altered by something organic. It wasn't distress, it was invitation. And though the Navy silenced the report, fishermen spoke of nights when the sea glowed faintly blue, and distant pings rolled like thunder from beneath calm water. Some swore they heard breathing between the waves, but those who listened closely said it wasn't asking for help. It was humming a lullaby. At the ocean floor, the current moved once more. No ship, no body, no trace, just a resonance that shimmered through miles of blackness. The Delilah was gone, yet not lost. It existed now in rhythm, in memory, in every sonar ping that reached the deep. The ocean had learned language, and in return, it had taught silence. Above, the waves rolled in steady cadence, the same heartbeat humanity had mistaken for horror. The final image lingered not in terror, but in peace, the sound of the world breathing, alive in both steel and salt. The deep, at last, had spoken.